If you are not doing this one thing, you will never become financially free. Now, I know some of you are going to be really upset when I give you the actual breakdown of what this is, because I know a lot of people look at this as a curse word. But if you do not have a budget going into 2025, it is going to be very hard for you to hit your goals. Now, I know. You're like, a budget, but how do you have a budget? And a budget's restricting, and a budget's going to hold me back from being able to enjoy my life. Well, let me ask you, as long as you've been alive, you could be 18 watching this, you could be 25 watching this, you could be 55. Have you really been able to be financially free up to this point in your life? Or has maybe that concept, that idea of not having a budget been the thing that's held you back? Now, believe me, with what's going on, and unfortunately, the statistics, and you can look this up, I highly recommend you do so you're not just hearing it from a random dude on YouTube. But when you look it up, about 85% of people either have a budget but are going over it, or just do not have a budget altogether. If you're going to drive across the country, if you're going to go from, I'm down here in Florida, if you're going to go from Florida and you're going to drive to Seattle, don't you think you're going to use a map to get there? That's exactly what a budget can do for you. Now, if we look at what's going on in the world today, if we look at what's happened in the country over the last 4 years, I understand why people have kind of pulled away from the budget idea. I understand why people are saying, but Stacks, I just can't do it. It doesn't matter how hard I try. I can't get the budget to line up. If you look at the numbers, and yes, I do have notes. I have a good memory, but you still got to have notes, right? If you look at the numbers today, gas is up 89.5% from 2020. So just over 4 years, up 89.5%. Utilities are up 91%. Anybody looked at their electric bill lately? It's gone up a little bit. Car insurance. How many of us that are over 16 do not have car insurance? Car insurance is up 51%. That's just three aspects of your life. And I chose those three because they're three aspects that everybody's dealing with. So I understand when you're like, Stacks, I don't feel like I'm trying to spend any extra money, but my budget is still worse than it was. My savings is worse than it is. I'm in debt. So we're going to talk about a few of those things to help you kind of get this lined up. But my goal is for you not to go into this with a sense of rigidity. Don't look at a budget as something that's restricting you. Don't feel like it's putting you in a box or in a cage and you're trying to get out of the cage, but you can't because you have a budget. No. If you're at where you're at, and it's the same thing with the fitness. I love comparing, the financial world to the fitness world as I was in it for so long. If I go around and I just say, oh, I can eat what I want and I'm going to do, if it fits your macros. But if I don't know what the macros are on the food, am I actually fitting it into my macros? If I'm just eating whatever I come across and I'm always gaining weight, or I'm not losing weight and my goal is to lose weight, or I'm not gaining muscle and my goal is to gain muscle, but I'm not tracking my workouts, that's the same thing as not understanding your budget. Because a budget isn't about restricting. A budget is actually understanding where your money's going. An easy way to break this down for you, or maybe a challenging one for some of you, if you were to look at your savings right now, if you were to look at your investments, if you were looking at your different accounts, are you really paying yourself first, or are you paying other people? I had a great conversation with a younger gentleman today, actually. And he said, well, I don't know a lot about investing, but I know that I have a laptop and it had an NVIDIA chip in it. So I went and invested in NVIDIA because I said, if I'm going to buy their product, I might as well invest in it. That's a great idea. If you go to Starbucks all the time, are you just buying Starbucks, or are you investing in Starbucks? So the challenge is we can easily change our mindset towards money, but we're taught as people in this country to be consumers. We're taught to go out and buy, and we're taught to spend things or spend money on things that are going to appease us in the moment, but we're not taught to invest in ourselves. We're not taught to invest in things that are going to make us money long term. That's the problem. That's one of the biggest challenges that I see today. And when people tell me, but I can't, but Stacks, I'd love to have a budget. I'd love to save more money, but I can't. The minute you say but, you're lying. And the biggest question that I have, are you lying to me, or are you lying to yourself? And when you say I can't, what type of people have the word can't in their vocabulary? And yes, I'm being direct because we're talking about money. We're talking about you having the opportunity to live in a financially free, in a state of being where you're not constantly in an anxiety mode, in a stressed mode, to be able to just live because of finances. And if you look at the opportunity for you, that one thing of having a budget, and what do I mean by a budget? So let's break this down a little bit. And obviously, we've got agents here in the office, we've got agents all over the country. We're very blessed. But when you're breaking down a budget for somebody, the first part of it is, do you even know what you're spending every month? Do you know what your rent is? Do you know what your insurance costs? Do you know your life insurance costs? Do you understand what you're putting into investments? Do you understand what you're tithing? Do you understand what your food cost is? So many people, I actually was somebody that had this happen to me because I thought, I'm buying the exact same groceries. Mandy and I have a pretty, not strict, but pretty regular diet. And when I looked at the cost, I said, oh, wait a minute, I'm paying so much more money than I was before. And that's when I realized how much inflation as far as food had really gone up. Specifically, if you're using Uber Eats, if you're using DoorDash, if you're using Shipt, if you're using any of the companies or any of the services where you're not actually going out and buying the food and having to pay yourself, but you're having it sent. If you're literally just going on and clicking, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, you can rack up a bill and not realize. So that's why sitting down and understanding what your current expenses are. What do I currently have it going out the door every single month? That's going to be a game changer for you. Now, auditing this afterwards, this is step 2. You got to take accountability of what you're spending. So you got to go audit that. Okay, I'm spending $3,000, I'm spending $5,000, I'm spending $8,000 a month on whatever, my bills are, etc., my Uber Eats, all the things that I'm spending money on. But after you do that audit, say, okay, do I need Uber Eats 5 days a week? Do I need all these things from the grocery store? When I'm going on Amazon, am I just buying because I'm on Amazon, or am I buying because it's something that is actually essential to my life? So you have to do an audit also of your needs versus your wants. Now, if you were to put that in your Amazon cart and you couldn't order it, you couldn't press that one-click buy for 24 hours. If you come back in 24 hours, will you still buy that same thing? Do you need it that bad? Or are you going to say, oh, actually, I don't really need it. I just kind of wanted it for the moment because I was bored. It's no different than people that go to the refrigerator and they ate 15 minutes ago, but they're at the refrigerator again. They're in the snack drawer again. Why are you there? Because you're not moving with purpose at the moment. You're moving because you're bored. You're hungry because you're bored. Well, are you spending money because you're bored? Specifically nowadays, because of the fact that Amazon, all these different things are more gamified. They look more gamey. You're more likely to go spend money on them. But what if you take it even one more step further? What if you leveraged your budget to then, or your expenses, you can put it either way, to compare it with what you're actually making. So what's your income? And now you can overlap it and say, okay, every single month, I should have, based on my normal expenses, I should have $200 left over. I should have $1,000 left over. If you're doing great, I should have $10,000 left over. Amazing. But where's that money going? Do you really want to work forever? Or what is your definition of financially free? I know different people have different definitions of financially free. Do you have a definition of financially free?
Yes.
What is your definition of financially free?
To be retired by 45.
Okay, so be retired. So when you say retired, not having to work for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So mine isn't, well, actually mine is 45. That's fine. But I have the same idea as her. I don't plan on retiring, but I want to be free as far as my financial decisions. I don't want my life to be restricted by making financial decisions by the time I'm 45 years old. She picked a great number. So if that's the case, am I utilizing my money right now to give me that opportunity? The gentleman I talked to earlier, and I understand where he was coming from. He's heard this from numerous people. He said, well, I'm young and I don't want to not live my life and I want to make sure that I'm experiencing things. I said, my man, you're not even out of the first season of your life. You've got so much time left. But if you don't fix your finances now, are you going to end up chasing and trying to find that all the way until you pass away? And he said, oh, nobody's ever actually said it to me that way. I said, because it depends on who's around you. And believe me, I'm not about restricting. This is not a Dave Ramsey type of situation where I'm telling you to live below your means and, be in a trailer park for the rest of your life and never spend any money. And, no, I'm not saying that at all, because I've seen how many people have leveraged debt, good debt, to be able to live their life. I've seen how many people use different strategies to get themselves where they want to go. And now they're financially free. but they did it having credit cards. They did it having good debt, not necessarily not student loans, etc. But they did it utilizing tools to get there. But if you don't have a budget, how are you ever going to get there? Do you think your favorite big companies, the billion-dollar companies that we see all the time on TV, or the ones like Lamborghini that don't do commercials, do you think they have a budget when they're building cars? Do you think they have a budget for the people that they're paying their employees? Are you looking at yourself in the same light as these billion-dollar companies? Because so often we don't have the mindset yet to say, oh, I'm a billion-dollar company. Hey, Stacks is a billion-dollar company. The paperwork just doesn't show it yet. So are you looking at yourself? Are you looking at yourself as a billion-dollar company, or at least a multi-million-dollar company? Because if you did, would you treat your finances differently? And I understand money blueprint is such a strong thing, and I'm going to talk about this a lot. But as we change it, by changing your mindset towards budgeting, it's not by just creating a budget. It's by creating or changing your mindset towards budgeting and how it's going to impact you and how much it's actually going to set you free in the long term. That when you start to adopt it, and as your mindset adjusts and says, oh, wait a minute, no, Stacks was right. If I have a budget, and if I go out and make more money beyond my budget, but I stay within my budget of spending, I'm not saying to spend below your means. I'm telling you to live your life. I'm telling you to enjoy, but you might have to work a little bit harder right now to have the discretionary income to put it into investments. And Mandy was actually better at this than me. She's the one that kind of broke this down for me. But Mandy talked about either having multiple bank accounts or having envelopes. And I'm going to go into this more in another video. But once I have my budget, so once I know my expenses, if I know what my income is, I can find out what my discretionary is. My discretionary is the leftover. If I don't know what's left over, I don't even know where I could put it. If I don't know what my expenses are, I never know if I'm making enough money. But if you want to be able to pay yourself first, if you want to be able to retire at an age, if you want to be able to stop working because of making money, and you want to work because you're doing a service for people, if you want to work because of the impact you're making versus working because you need money to pay bills, the only way that I see you getting there is by having a budget. If you do not have an outline for a budget, or if you're not even sure how to start, feel free to comment down below, say budget, or feel free to message me, whether it be on LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And if you got any value out of this video, please do me a favor, comment down below, hit subscribe, hit like, share it with a friend, anything of that nature. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all your guys' time. I hope I gave you some value this evening. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.